Constantly get questions on a hinge, so I wanted to break through a couple different key tips for optimizing your single leg kickstand deadlift. I like to recommend mastering this body weight before adding load. So I'm working my left side, my knee is bent. When the knee is bent and my hips are traveling back, that is going to open the back of the hips, allow me to get that nice length on the back side. Here, it's important that my weight isn't towards my heels. If the weight is back towards the heels, when you hinge, you're going to feel more hamstring, you're not going to feel a lot of the glute action. Think about knee forward and weight into the middle of my foot. So I'm not back here, I'm back over the top of my foot. You can hold on to something if you feel like you're going to fall over. My right foot is behind me. I'm not up on my toes. I can feel my first mat head or that base of the big toe grounded. And I'm not back on the back foot. I'm using this right foot to push me over to my left, okay? Setting up in that soft knee, weight through the midfoot. I can place my left hand on my left glute so I can feel that sensation of the glute lengthening behind me. My right hand can go in the right hip crease. What's really important is as you hinge, the hinge is coming from the hips. All too often I see the hinge come from the upper body. The ribs flare, the head leads the way, and the glutes aren't actually moving back, it's just the upper body moving in space. So as soon as you don't get that length on the back with the hips, your hinge is done. So as my gaze is forward, I'm pressing through my midfoot, and I'm going to allow my hips to move back. Gaze is on the horizon. My right knee, what's really important is that as I go into this hinge, I don't drop right away. You're going to get potentially some pinching in the front of the hip. You're going to take up all your internal rotation space when you over-rotate to start. So think about belly button stays neutral as you go, and then as you turn into it is when you kind of like slowly drop that right knee and shift into that hip. So that's a key point here. So as I'm sitting up in the hinge, thinking about gaze forward, weight over the midfoot, sending my butt back in space, staying over that midfoot. This is about my range. If you want, what can be really helpful is actually holding to the foam roller in front of you, because I want you to think about head and butt long. See what happened to me when I did that? It's like my booty opened a little bit more because I thought about being long, like I have a unicorn horn on the top of my head. My left glute is shaking right now. Remember, I'm on over my midfoot, I can hold on to something, and then when I come up to stand, I'm thinking about pushing from the ground and bringing the hip through. Watch what happens to my knee. Doesn't extend, stays bent. Hips come through. A lot of times people stop right here. You need to keep going. Come to stand so that you can feel the sensation of this hip opening and coming through to full extension. I'm not extending from my low back. The movement is from my hip, okay? But now I can feel this openness. So if you get a lot of pinchiness in your hinge, maybe you're actually never coming to stand, or maybe, like I said before, you're over-rotating. So you're kind of getting that pinchiness in the front line. So when we come up to a standing position, then we can set up again. Remember, knee soft, weight over the midfoot. I am pushing into the ground as I send my hip back. Remember, hip leads the way as I go back. And then once I stop feeling that stretch, think about being long, and then I push through to come to stand. Couple other key points when you're going into this hinge, we don't want this happening. Sometimes there's a lot of laxity on the outside of the hip. You want to be able to load these external rotators and get them nice and long. So think about, or open. So think about getting long from your rib cage to the side body. So I like to put my hand on my hip here so that it doesn't do this. I actually think about unhiking and getting pressure here. Like I put pressure into this space to kind of guide my hips on where to go. And a lot of times, if you have a lot of tension in those external rotators or in the glutes, it's very hard to get that kind of lengthening back. But even getting that lengthening can help clear up a lot of pelvic floor symptoms. So a couple key things with the hinge that we just talked about. So my knee is forward and over the middle of my foot. What happens a lot of time is someone elevates the heel, weight is in the toes. Someone extends the knee and the weight is in the heels. So if the weight is in the heels, as I come up from my hinge, if I do this, how am I coming up? Through my low back. And I'm also not feeling the glute length because I do this, my low back just turned on, and I'm feeling this long stretch in my hamstrings. Okay, so the glutes lead the way coming up to a standing position. Once again, I love to use the foam roller. If you are more hypermobile, that can be very helpful. Putting a band around the knees can be helpful. If you struggle to connect with the foot, stand. If you have high rigid arches, put your foot on a sock over the midfoot. Use references to help you get this connection because it is key. If you have any more questions on Hinge, please let me know.